Art Laffer is the darling economist of the right wing who's basically been wrong about everything since 1979. Now, I say that, it sounds like hyperbole, but it's not really. I mean, the guy really is wrong about everything. So let's listen to him talk about Obama's record, and you can see how silly he is.
There's no covering it. There's no sugarcoating. There's nothing that's going to make this president look like a good president for the economy.
But, you know, Charles Payne mentioned something interesting at the outset of the show, the idea that, you know, we might not be firing on all cylinders, but we are kind of like the tallest midget in the room. In a world where things are meager.
It makes no sense whatsoever. And the reason we're now coming out is because all of those stimulus dollars spent are now drying up, and government spending as a share of GDP is falling very sharply, which is leading to a modest recovery right now. And I think it'll continue on. I'm very optimistic about the long term. But the reason why we're having any growth now is because of stimulus spending running off and not being there anymore.
That makes absolutely no sense. In fact, if you look at the economic chart of the U.S., you see how when we come out of the Great Recession, you see the stock market crash, essentially, the subprime mortgage crisis hit, and then when Obama gets in office and then they implement the stimulus, from there on, you see a steady rise in job creation. And he acts like, no, the reason why the economy is doing well right now or doing okay right now as far as the stock numbers go and as far as job creation goes is because the stimulus ran out. Well, how do you accommodate for the fact that when they implemented the stimulus and from then until today, there's been steady economic growth the entire time? No, it makes no sense. No, it's a lose-lose for Obama. No matter what he does, they're gonna attribute the whatever the outcome is of those policies to whatever is against him. You see what I mean? It doesn't matter. He could do anything that works, and they'll say, no, it worked despite the thing that he did. Well, what do you want the fucking guy to do, man? And understand that, so when Obama took office, and in like 2009 and 2010, what were all the right-wing talking points? Think back on it. It's because it's really interesting. What they argued was, God damn Obama, there he goes, adding to the deficit, and the stock market isn't recovering fast, and unemployment is still high, and, you know, there's not very much private sector job creation. Those were their arguments, okay? Those four things, that was the heart of their argument. And then today, what's the reality? On every one of those fronts, Obama has delivered. So the deficit has been more than cut in half. What is it, $483 billion today? Meanwhile, he inherited a $1.4 trillion deficit. So he more than cut the deficit in half. The stock market is at record highs. Unemployment now is under 6%. And in the private sector, there's been a net job creation of over 8 million jobs. And these guys, they just decide to change the criteria. Whenever Obama meets the criteria, they change the criteria. It's the same thing with Obamacare. Obamacare is their policy. Richard Nixon came up with it, and then Bob Dole proposed it again in the 1990s, and then the Heritage Foundation wrote policy papers about it, and Chuck Grassley and Newt Gingrich supported it. So he negotiates with them and compromises and ends up implementing their policy, and then they turn around and say, we hate our own policy. There's no winning. Now, understand, I've said this time and time again, I always have to add this caveat. Just because I'm defending Obama on these issues doesn't mean that there aren't bad things, negative things happening in the economy. We've spoken about them. But the things that are happening bad in the economy, the things that are negative in the economy, these guys don't bring up because they don't have substantive criticisms of Obama. They have bullshit criticisms of Obama. They're not intelligent enough to look at the numbers and see what's actually going on in a negative way. Because the real problem is income inequality. The real problem is that all the job creation has been predominantly low-wage job creation. So there are real problems. I mean, wages have been stagnant for the middle class since 1980. You know, over 90% of the wealth gained since the Great Recession has gone to the rich. There are problems. We have a warfare economy. I mean, the government spends so much money on the military-industrial complex that our welfare in America is warfare. We have many problems with the economy, but they don't focus on any of the real problems because they love those things. They love the warfare spending. They love the fact that there's income inequality. So when they attack him, they have to attack him on bullshit grounds and say things like, by no measure is he good with the economy, except your key measures, the deficit, the stock market, unemployment, and private sector job creation.